Alright, so this is a follow-up from my last video about GUI, but this is dealing more about inputs because I noticed a lot of people had questions about that. Now there's going to be two things or two ideas that I'm going to be presenting to you guys. One is going to be using getTree.changeScene to change to different scenes when clicking buttons. Another is going to be using canvas layers, right? So instead of changing scenes, you're actually just bringing up a new layer that exists in the current scene and then making it toggleable by using visible, right? The visible property. Now, going into the change scene method, we'll notice here we have 4 buttons here, and they're all instances as denoted by this icon. If we click every single one, you'll notice they all go back to the exact same scene, right? They go back to this one button scene. And this button scene just has one script, right? And inside the script, we connect this pressed signal to the function called onButtonPressed. And inside onButtonPressed, we do getTree.changeScene to scene. Now, scene is an export string variable. And the reason is, if we look into change scene documentation, the path it takes in is a string, right? So when we go into here, you'll notice the scene is res new scene 2.scene, which is this, right? It's the path to this. Here it's also that. Then these two are looking at new scene 3, right? So the reason why this can be so streamlined and where you only really need one piece of code is because getTree, right, is accessible by every single node, right? So you really don't need a reference to this new scene. You just need a reference to getTree, which you always have. Now if we load this up, you'll see that every single one goes to the correct scene, right? And so that's it for change scene, and that's my preferred method actually, as you can see why it's so streamlined, right? The only issue about it, or not really an issue, but one thing to note is that when using getTree.changeScene, you're unloading and loading a scene, right? So you're deleting the existing scene, and then you're adding a new scene to the root, right? And this can be a little bit taxing in terms of having to allocate new memory and deallocating old memory. It's really not going to matter too much when it comes to GUI, just because you're not going to have that many components in a menu system, most likely, right? So when it comes to the canvas layer, one thing you have to realize about canvas layers is that they're used by toggling visible and not visible, right? As you can see here, this is our new scene, right? And if we toggle it, then it's not there, right? It's on layer 2, and this is important because all nodes by default are on layer 1. So this menu is on layer 1, right? So we need this to appear above. So we want to make it any number, right, above. So we can make it 5, 100, anything, right? Now, the problem with canvas layers is that because you're toggling the visible property, right, you need a reference to this node. If you look into here, this is what I'm doing, right? These options are referring to the canvas layers, right? So when I click pressed, right, it connects to on options pressed, which is here. And the same with quit pressed, right? It's the same thing. We're setting the visible to true, right? Because we want to turn this menu on. And notice how we have to get this reference here. It's not like getTree.changeScene where we're just using getTree, right, which is accessible by any node. We have to get a specific reference. And so you can see already why this wouldn't be streamlined, because we would have to, make this custom signal, custom function every single time we have this new button, right? If I had 5 buttons, I would need 5 different functions. And in here, we just have this new scene, and this new scene is a little bit different. I try to make it as streamlined as possible. So I connected the press function here so that when this button is pressed, it just makes this not visible, right? It's just a back button, pretty much. And if we run this, you'll see why it works. Right, so we press this, it makes this visible. When I press this, it's gonna make this not visible, right? Same thing here. One thing you'll see about this is that it's a little bit different from the getTree.changeScene scenes, right? This is a little different here, right? As you can notice, I'll bring this up. These are the same nodes, right? But here, this has a script here, and it has just one signal here. This doesn't have a single script. All it's doing is actually instancing that button scene we made before, right here, just because we can use getTree.changeScene, right? So again, you see why it's so flexible, because we can use this button anywhere, right? Like we can instance it anywhere and it'll work properly if we put in the correct scene that we want to change to. You see, we're changing to menu scene, which is this menu scene. And so that's why I prefer to use getTree.changeScene pretty much in all cases. The only case that I would advocate for canvas layer is when making a pause menu. And it's pretty obvious why you would want to use a canvas layer and not change scene, because when you're pausing the game, you're not actually changing the scene. You just want the current scene to stay in the state that it's currently in, but you want to bring up a menu, right? I'm not going to go into depth about how to make a pause menu. GD Quest has a really good video about that, and in his video, you can even notice that they use canvas layer, right? And it's pretty simple to implement, but I'm just not going to go through it right now. And yeah, that's pretty much it. The two main options of doing change scenes. And yeah, that's it. So thank you guys for watching.